I was writing a best man speech for my best friend Chris's wedding when I found the messages that proved he'd been sleeping with my wife for 6 months. I finished writing that speech anyway. I want to tell you why. Me and Chris go back to middle school. Not, we've been cool since high school back. I'm talking 6th grade. Both of us getting picked last for basketball, bonding over that shared humiliation, and never really stopping being close after that. Best man at my wedding. I was supposed to be best man at his, set to happen in 8 weeks when all this went down. My wife, Denise, and Chris actually met through me, years back, way before me and Denise got serious. The three of us used to hang out all the time, movie nights, cookouts, the whole thing. When me and Denise got married, Chris gave a toast that made half the room cry. That's the kind of bond we had, or the kind I thought we had. About 2 months ago, I noticed Denise being weird about her phone. Little things, turning it face down when she used to just leave it wherever, taking calls in the bathroom, being cagey when I'd ask who she was texting. I told myself I was being paranoid. 6 years married, you don't want to be the guy who starts checking his wife's phone over nothing. Then Chris started acting different too, canceling our regular Thursday hangouts more and more, always some excuse. Work, his fiancée Amara needing help with wedding stuff, being tired, which, fine, people get busy. But something about the pattern of it started sitting wrong in my gut. 2 weeks ago, Denise left her phone on the kitchen counter while she jumped in the shower, and a message popped up on the lock screen. Not from a name, from a contact saved as Jim. Which struck me as odd, because Denise doesn't go to a gym. She does yoga videos at home, has for years. The preview text said, "Can't stop thinking about last night. We need to talk before the wedding." I stood in that kitchen for a long time before I did anything. If this is your first time here, we tell one real story a week. Subscribe now because you don't want to miss where this one lands. I want to be honest. I didn't go through her whole phone right then. I needed more than a locked screen preview before I let my mind go where it was going. So I waited. I watched. Same as I imagine a lot of people do in this position, hating myself a little for the waiting, but needing to be sure before I blew up my entire life over a suspicion. 3 days later, Denise went out with the girls on a Thursday night, the same night Chris had canceled our hangout for work stuff. I didn't follow anybody, didn't do anything dramatic. I just paid closer attention than I had been. When she got home, her phone buzzed on the nightstand while she was brushing her teeth. Same contact. Jim. This time I looked. 6 months, y'all. 6 months of messages. Photos I'm not going to describe. Plans to meet up disguised as gym sessions, work trips, girls' nights, and guys' nights that lined up on both ends like a puzzle neither of them thought anyone would ever put together. And the contact, Jim, wasn't some stranger's number. I recognized it immediately because I've called that number 1,000 times over 20 years of friendship. It was Chris. I sat with that phone in my hand for I don't know how long. My best friend since middle school. Best man at my wedding. Set to get married himself in 8 weeks. To a woman I also cared about, who had no idea her fiancé had been sleeping with my wife the entire time they'd been planning their wedding. I didn't confront Denise that night. I didn't confront Chris either. I want to be honest about why. I needed to figure out what I was even going to do, because my first instinct wasn't calm, and I didn't trust myself not to do something I couldn't take back. I sat on it for 4 days. 4 days of going to work, coming home, looking at my wife across the dinner table like she was a stranger wearing a mask of somebody I used to know. On the 5th day, Chris called me. Casual, talking about groomsmen stuff, asking if I'd started my best man speech yet, laughing about some inside joke from 20 years back, like his whole world wasn't sitting on a foundation of a lie he was telling me directly to my face. I said, "Yeah, man, I started it actually, writing some good stuff, and I wasn't lying. I want you to understand, by that point, I had a plan. I called a dinner. Me, Denise, Chris, and Amara told everybody it was a let's celebrate the wedding coming up thing. My treat, nice restaurant. Denise seemed nervous the whole car ride there, though she tried to hide it. Chris and Amara showed up looking like the picture-perfect engaged couple. Halfway through dinner, I stood up like I was about to give a toast, which, given my role as best man, wasn't unusual. Everybody just assumed I was getting sentimental early. I raised my glass. I said I wanted to share something about loyalty, since that's what real friendship is built on. Then I set my phone on the table, screen up, opened to the messages, and slid it toward Chris and Denise. I said, I think everybody at this table deserves to actually know what's been going on the last 6 months before we go any further with wedding plans. Amara read 3 messages before she started shaking. She didn't scream. She just stood up, said, "Okay," in the smallest voice I've ever heard a grown woman use, and walked out of that restaurant alone. Denise tried to grab my arm, tried to say my name like there was any version of an explanation that mattered at that point. Chris didn't say anything at all, just sat there, staring at that phone, looking 20 years younger and smaller than I'd ever seen him look. The wedding got canceled the next morning. Amara blocked Chris everywhere within the week, moved in with her sister. I filed for divorce 12 days after that dinner. Denise tried reaching out a few times, calls, texts, 1 letter. I haven't responded to any of it. Chris has called me probably 30 times since that night. I haven't picked up once. 20 years of friendship, and it turns out I didn't actually know the man at all. Or maybe I did, and this was always somewhere in him, just waiting for the right amount of comfort and access to come out. Amara actually reached out to me about a month after, just to say thank you for telling the truth instead of letting her walk into a marriage the same way I almost did. We talk sometimes now, actually. Nothing romantic. Just 2 people who got blindsided by the same 2 people, checking in on each other now and then. There's something almost funny about that, in the saddest possible way. I finished that best man speech, by the way. Never gave it. It's still sitting in my notes app, half written. This whole paragraph about loyalty and brotherhood that I can't bring myself to either finish or delete. Some bonds you think are unbreakable are really just untested. Mine got tested. It broke. Comment below. Would you have confronted them the way I did publicly or handled it differently? And subscribe, because next week's story is about the voicemail I got from Chris 3 months later, and the one thing he said that made me finally understand why he did it.